We would now like to invite up to the stage our first group of panelists from the island food community of Pohnpei, Adelino Lawrence, from Te Tango Enua in the Cook Islands, Daniel Mataroa, from Papua New Guinea, Women in Agriculture Development, Maria Lineby, and Kalani Souza from Olohana Foundation in Hawaii.
When Kalani and Craig and Kaitu from Fiji traveled the Pacific and visiting breadfruit cultures, we started with Micronesia. And there we met Adelino, taking the lead and heralding the importance of food security and breadfruit and relying on traditional foods. We're delighted to have him here, and we'd like to ask him to begin with our session, followed by probably one of the more, he's the only guy I think I've ever met who can sit and jiggle. I think it's a Rarotongan thing. They're well known for their dancing. And in time, I believe we may be looking at a potential place for next year's Breadfruit Summit. The third person will be followed by one of the more amazing ladies I've ever met. I was amused when my son said, "Dad, she's so small." And I said, "Son, you don't measure a person by their height, but by the size of her shadow. She is the shadow of a mountain." Maria Lineby from Papua New Guinea. Amazing. And of course, another individual whom is self-evident and not self-proclaimed, has been the guiding spirit and the energy that kept us forward. And I'm glad he stuck around because he refused to die. But he's still leading us in not only in his presence, but with his spirit. And it's Kalani Souza, and please follow the order. This is my last concluding opportunity to coordinate and facilitate an activity with this organization. Mahalo.
This is a family. We are 4 members. Among the family members gathered here, we call the speakers before this panel heavyweight speakers. The island food community of Pohnpei was established in 2004. I was the founding chairman of the board, and now I'm still called the chairman. Oh, I was looking and thinking, what will be the answer for that question? What do we do now? All of us farmers, the producers of breadfruit. I came up with this slogan, as acronym. The answer is CHIEF, stand for culture, health, environment, economic, and food security. I will end my remarks because I think that is the answer. Let's promote our food crops by CHIEF, culture, health, environment, economic, and food security. Thank you.
Kia orana. means may you live on. So, kia orana. Awesome. Thank you. It's an honor to be here. Before I say my remarks, I just want to say thank you very much to Pifon. And we're hoping to see our chairman today. Also want to say thank you very much to IFAD, ACP, FO for ACP. I know sometimes with all these letters it sounds like we don't know our alphabet, but also the EU, and but I just want to say thank you very much for bringing us here. And I'm here with the king from the island of Waitutaki, King Wairuarangiariki, Toina Wairuarangiariki. It's because we believe that for the breadfruit and food security to be successful, it has to come through the indigenous line. All agriculture projects have always been, presided over by the Crown through the government, which is okay. But because of that, the food we plant is all imported food. Tomatoes, cabbages, cucumber, oranges. Yeah, the oranges arrived in the 1700s when the mutiny, when the bounty came down there. They're supposed to come get some breadfruit, but when they came to the island of Rarotonga, the crew was not allowed to go ashore. So 2 of our ancestors went on board and did some trade, and in exchange for their food, they were given some pumpkin seeds and oranges, citrus. So it was an imported food. So today, we plant all these imported foods, and of course with that comes the pesticides, because our normal traditional remedy can't counter. Just like the flu, when they brought, we have to have the flu vaccine for us to fly to Hawaii to this convention. And we had to have the paperwork to prove it. But anyway, coming down onto the cultural aspects of what we're doing. So we believe for the breadfruit to be successful, it has to go through the traditional leaders. And when that happens, the priority of a king or queen was for the matakainanga, which means the family in the village, the tribes. It goes like that. Whereas sometimes if you go from the government, from the minister, and the message gets down to the CEO of agriculture, and then it gets down to the officer in the office, and then most of the time it goes to their own staff. Government is there for their own staff. Really. That's what the budget is for the own workers in government, which is okay. But now, the king and I, we believe that for this to move, we have to go through another way. We've tried all those other ways. Yeah, some worked, some didn't. But the distribution did not actually work. So we're going to try the ancestral system. And that's the way we're going to try that. Now, as much as in 2016, when PIFON sponsored the membership of PIFON to have a week of action in Tonga. That's the first time I met with Dr. Tusi and made the presentation of the breadfruit. And like Carl, when he first saw this, it's like a jumble lead, when you charge a flat battery in a car, you just zoom. And I went back. The biggest hurdle, the biggest challenge I had was to re-educate our people. Because with the breadfruit, every home had a tree. Every home. And every home had children. And all those children, first thing in the morning, go feed the pigs. Second thing, rake the rubbish around the yard. And the tree with the most rubbish was the breadfruit. So we hated that tree. Fortunately for me, after I was born, I was taken off my parents by my grandparents and sort of angai. Angai is to feed, not registered. Angai, just like that. So after I was born, my parents went to New Zealand and all my brothers and sisters born in New Zealand. So when my father came back, decided after getting his pension, New Zealand pension, and able to collect it in the Cook Islands, he came back home. Yeah, he wanted to come back home. First thing he did was he cut down the 6 breadfruit trees in front of our house. I know. It was a disaster. At the time, I said, yes! But my grandfather cried because the village always come there to collect. They always come. I hated that tree because when the fruits fall on the ground, it was difficult to rake. But anyway, 2016, I got that shock and I fell in love with that tree. So the challenge I had when I went back to Rarotonga was to convince our people about the beauty of this tree so they can fall in love with it again. I'm still struggling with that. That's why I brought the king. If they don't want to listen to my voice, they can listen to the king's voice. They have no choice when the king speaks. So I'm sure the king is encouraged by the presentations that we've had in the last 2 days. You know, there's a program called Feed the World. Before we even think of the world, we have to feed our home first. What makes a happy people? When you have food. Do I look like I'm sad? But when you have food, you know, wars, most wars, because of food. Land, food, water, women. Should be the other, well, it is the other way around, but anyway. When you have a food, you have happy people. Why are the Cook Islands friendly? Why are the Polynesian people of the Pacific are friendly? Because they have food. And they have plenty to share. When you go into any home in all these islands, hey, come and eat. In the Cook Islands, people will always call you, come and eat. Even though there's no food on the table, they will call you to come and eat. And we hope that they say, no, it's okay, I already ate. But what I'm saying here is, when you have food in the cupboard, you will always be happy. And that is sometimes a downfall. Because we have food, we don't want to turn up to work. The 8 to 4 job doesn't really appeal if you have food in the cupboard. But nevertheless, it creates a happy people. So if we fill our cupboard up first, then we can talk about feeding the world. Let me share with you about the geography of the Cook Islands. It takes 4.5 hours to fly from Auckland, New Zealand to Rarotonga, which is the big island. It takes 45 minutes from Rarotonga to the island of the King of Waitutaki to fly there on a propeller plane. And it takes 4.5 hours to fly from Rarotonga to the northernmost island of Penryn. And 45 minutes to fly from Rarotonga to the southernmost island of Mangaia. We have an ocean area of nearly 2 million square kilometers. We are rich in seawater. So if any of you want to import or for us to export some seawater, we'll have it for you. If it has some tuna in it, good on you. That's your bonus. But talking about that ocean, our ancestors, when they sailed on their double-hull canoes, on their waka, these are huge catamarans. We still don't understand today the magnitude of that. Because the wakas we built today, tiny. Our ancestors had these huge catamarans from 30 feet to 180 feet long. That's the length of a 737 plane. That's humongous. 100 people, easy, no problem. And when they sail, they take with them all the seeds, all the food, flowers, everything. Nothing has changed. Our mamas, they steal orchids from your gardens to take back home. They take food, but there's 3 main crops or seeds or trees that they take. Coconut, noni, and breadfruit. Coconut, noni, breadfruit. The coconut is an economy, it's an income. You can make oil from it. You can actually make diesel from it too. There's so many things you can get from the oil of the coconut. So many products. There's the noni. You have the noni, it's also economic benefit. Now we're talking about breadfruit. The topic, culture and economic context. For us, I believe, this is my personal belief, is that if we go to the breadfruit, it will also be an economic benefit. But before we go there, let's fill our cupboards first so that we can enjoy ourselves and also learn from the mistakes of previous farming methods so that we don't mass farm and have the space in between to plant the arrowroot, the taro, and the kumara. But again, thank you very much. Kia kamita ki teito no te tikanga mane, kia taima eo ki waiine, I te oro ngātu te aro, o te uiariki, ngā te tuku ki aren. Mei te tomato kaumani, tomato mitopakari, mei te mata, mei te nui, e tai watu ki tā mātou anō tamariki, te tua te aroa, kia ora ana. Thank you very much, kia manuia.
Thank you. Danny is one of those, what shall I say, peculiar person in Pifon. That when Danny is around, everybody's alive. So that's how we enjoy Danny's, and I think he's done a well introduction of his country, his tradition, and thank you, Danny, on behalf of Pifon, just to you. Thank you. Thank you. Papua New Guinea, as I did my presentation yesterday, 800 different languages. The breadfruit tree has 800 different names. And if we had to explain here, I think we have more than 100 species that are not known. Breadfruit grows wild in PNG. We don't cultivate. Today, you wouldn't see anybody cultivating breadfruit in Papua New Guinea. It grows wild. With the 8 to 9 million people that we have, we are not thinking of exports as yet. As my brother here said, we have to fill our cupboards first. You will see there's a poster out there. We are talking about the breadfruit nut. In PNG, we have our breadfruit leaves that we eat. It is traditionally cultured, and those are the ones that we grow in our backyards. And those leaves are the ones that you will see in every traditional ceremony that is brought up, there is breadfruit leaves there. For the nut, when we go into the farms, into the villages, into our gardens, that is something we just pick from the trees, put them in open fire, cook them, have with coconut milk or coconut juice, and that's sort of something like that. So for me coming here, I was especially told by my scientists in Papua New Guinea that we have the biggest diverse breadfruit trees in Papua New Guinea. We would like to know more about the Breadfruit Summit in Honolulu. Please bring back something. The only thing that we have documented is that one there. The leaves, the protein content, the husbandry part of it, and how it looks, it's totally different from the one you have on the table there. So for us to support that, this particular project, I would specifically like to say thank you to Dr. Tushi. I've never known a person like you, so humble. And then when Cheyenne came to me, said, Maria, would you want to come to Hawaii for the Breadfruit Summit? I said, why not? I think there's a lot for me to learn. Well, when Kyle came to me, Pifon came and said, Maria, we are only allocating some funds. Would you like to work on it? I said, already I've got scientists on board that are already working on, they're talking about tissue culture of the new varieties. They're telling Kyle, please give Maria some varieties and she can bring them with her. So we are ready to work with you. So that is my message this morning. Thank you for listening.
I think this is the heavyweight panel over here, these guys. You know, my tutu, he always tell me stories, you know, and he always started with boy. And whenever he started like that, boy, you know, instead of using my name, I knew something was coming, right? He was setting me up for something. He always said, you know, smart people, they learn from their mistakes. But wise people learn from other people's mistakes. So he said, you know, you should learn to be wise. But then he also told me, wisdom is a thing that can be learned, but it cannot be taught. Think about that when you're paying your tuition. Thank you. So, one of the more important things he told me was the past should always have a voice in everything you do. The past should never have a vote. You following me? The past should always inform and advise. The past should never control. The world those children over there will grow up into looks nothing like the world we live in today. They must learn to make their decisions for themselves. So when I was a young man, we used to collect all the breadfruit and we make po'i'ulu, you know, or mar, the guys call. And we bury them in the ground so we can save them for hard times. And we bring them up and we use them for eat throughout the year. So maybe about 65, 70% of the breadfruit our place, Wailuanui Keanai, we save. Maybe about 25 go to the pigs every morning, you know, when you go down for feed the pigs. And then as I got older, the story changed. Most people stopped eating breadfruit. The university telling them it's a famine food. It's a famine food. So if you're not in famine, why are you eating the breadfruit? So now we're eating Spam. Pig in a can. What a brilliant idea. So we were watching at the time about the top maybe 25% of the breadfruit was going to the market, to the farmers, selling to the big buyers who taking them to make product or sell them in the stores. And then maybe the next 15%, the village eating. And then we're throwing away now about 50% because we're not even raising the pigs anymore. Now we got Spam, pigs in a can. No need the pigs over there on the back of the lot. And then a little bit later, it's getting even worse. 15, 20% selling to the market, 5% eating, 75% of it rotting on the ground. And we got to rake them up and all the flies and everything else. Pretty soon you like cut down the tree. So me, I came to breadfruit and agroforestry studies with Craig Elovich, my good brother, from marine biology. I know, right? Doesn't make any sense. I used to study cetaceans and pinnipeds for the government, NOAA. I go out and follow whales around. So when I'm following the whales around, I couldn't help but notice all the plastic in the sea. So I started thinking about, well, what's the real problem to the food chain here? It's the plastic. So then I started thinking about what I know about ulu, or mei, or lamai, or utu, however we like call them. So it's not just that the fruit should be handled differently in the economic marketplace. And what I think should be happening is the top 20% should be staying with the village and the people, the best part of the crop, not selling the best part of the crop to corporations. The next 25%, sell them that one, because they're just going to cut them up, cook them up, dry them up, grind them up, put them in a plastic bag. So why are we eating the more low-quality fruit and these buyers insisting that they get the best crops? I don't know what they think they're doing when they insist on anything. We should keep the best 20% for the local people in the region and then sell them the next 25% that they can dry up, cut up, and put in a bag. The then remaining 55 to 60%, we should be turning that into fuel. Why do we think it's a waste? The fishermen are finding it harder and harder to find their crop. Well, what if the fishermen used their boats re-outfitted and went around to the different islands and collected all the waste breadfruit in the hull, and we let it ferment there in the 2 weeks that it takes to get back to the main port city? They pump it up into the processing company because it's been fermenting along the way, and then they start turning it into fuel. Fuel to feed our boats and our engines and our farming equipment, so we get off this third-grade crude that they've been charging us top dollar for and they can't even sell in the United States legally. Ayo? Now, that's not what excites me. What excites me is after the first 20 years, the tree starts producing even more latex, organic latex. Now, we can sell fuel for $10 a gallon, or we can sell pharmaceutical alcohol for $80 to $120 a gallon. What do we want to do? We got to have these discussions and start deciding which direction we're going in when it comes to processing and economic development. But more importantly, if we can figure out through research the way to harvest the latex from the tree, the way they harvest maple syrup, where we keep the tree alive for the next 35 years beyond its good fruit production, but we continue to harvest the latex, we could create an organic plastic. Let me say that again. An organic plastic that we could use to manufacture in the medical industry, both the sterile packaging we need, as well as technology that needs hard plastics in order to create their machinery, but a plastic that is biodegradable. The only people who would be upset with that is the oil companies. You following? So I'm thinking we're on the verge of something great here. Something we need to seriously let our young children get excited about, get engaged with, begin their research, and develop products that will put the Pacific not only food-wise and energy-wise, but literally impacting the main problem we face in our food chain, which is microplastics that will not break down, that's beginning to affect the oceans. Thanks, you guys.